So what does the Bible really say about Enoch? Like, what is scripture and what isn't scripture? And yeah, we've all heard about the Book of Enoch and the lost books of the Bible and things like that. But what does the actual canon actually say? The Bible references to Enoch, like in actual canon, there's only like in 3 spots, right? So the first one of those is in Genesis 5:21 through 24. So we're going to read that real quick. 5:21 through 24. All right. Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. After he begot Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and had sons and daughters. So all of the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Like, that alone right there is like, what? Like, God took him. It's like he basically was raptured before the concept of the rapture was even a thing, which I think is pretty cool, man. So imagine just walking with God just so long and so well that God is just like, you know what? Come on, man. You're coming to paradise with me, But yeah. So that's one. That's just the first reference of Enoch that's in the Bible. So it's pre-flood time. This is before Noah. I think he was like his great-grandfather or something like that. And then the next one, the next Bible verse that talks about Enoch is in Hebrews, which is Hebrews 11:5. Let's check that one out. All right. Hebrews 11:5 says, by faith Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death and was not found because God had taken him. For before he was taken, he had this testimony that he pleased God. So that's also saying the same thing, that he was taken. So far, what we know about Enoch is that he lived 365 years, or what was it? Yeah, 365 years total, right? And then he just disappeared and vanished. He also had Methuselah, who was, I think in the Bible, the person that lived the longest, right? And then, so from there, we go to Hebrews, and Hebrews tells us that Enoch pleased God, right? And that was his that was his testimony, that he pleased God. Interesting, right? And then after that, the next time we hear about Enoch in the Bible is in Jude, the book of Jude, which is only one chapter. It's a shorter book, but he doesn't it doesn't go into much detail about much of anything in Jude. So verses 14 through 15. All right, 14. Now Enoch, the 7th from Adam, prophesied about these men also, saying, behold, the Lord comes with 10,000 of his saints, to execute judgment on all, to convict all who are ungodly among them of all their ungodly deeds which they have committed in an ungodly way, and of all the harsh things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. So what's interesting about this reference to Enoch in the book of Jude is that Jude is actually quoting straight from the book of Enoch, right? And which is not scripture. It's not in the canon. It wasn't chosen to be in the canon. And from what I understand, that's because it wasn't written by Enoch, which I thought beforehand, right? Beforehand, I was told that it was written, so that there's 3 parts to it. The first part was written by Enoch and the rest were added on. That's what I was taught, before. But after listening to someone like Wes Huff and other biblical scholars and stuff like that, it turns out that it wasn't written by Enoch, and that this was basically an attempt by first century Jewish scholars to try to make sense of the whole spiritual side of reality. So you have angels and demons and things like that, and they're trying to make sense of what happened, and they kind of just elaborate on on what's already in scripture, try to it's almost like, to me, the way I see it, and I'm not saying that that's what it is, but to me, it's almost like it's fan fiction, It's like if somebody has a Star Wars, they love Star Wars so much, they start writing their own, side missions of Star Wars and stuff like that. But, so that's the three references of the Bible about Enoch are just those three right there. So he was in the Bible known for walking with God, right? For pleasing God and for prophesying. That's what the scripture says, right? So my biggest takeaway from his life is that he walked with God and he pleased God. Like that's, man, that's, I think is powerful. Just that alone. Um, so the Book of Enoch is considered scripture by like the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Um, not many, not many other places consider it to be scripture. The key differences between what we know about Enoch from the Bible and the Apocrypha is from the Bible, we know that Enoch walked with God and was taken by him. He was taken by God, right? And so I think some translations say he was no more, right? Which like he just disappeared. And it gives us short, mysterious references about Enoch. It doesn't really expand on his life or anything like that. So he's recognized in the Old Testament, right? And he's recognized in the New Testament. And in the Bible, in the canon itself, it actually emphasizes the fact that Enoch had faith, right? Because that's what that part of the reading in Hebrews is about, is that without faith, you can't please God. Well, Enoch had so much faith that he pleased God, right? Which I think is awesome, right? From the Apocrypha, it actually expands on Enoch and it gives a bunch of visions of him like going to see the stars and galaxies and all these other things. It gives us long narratives and like a glimpse, supposedly a glimpse into the spiritual realm of, you know, who's who and who's what. And that's what I don't like. The only problem that I have with like, not, I don't want to say problem or issue, but so there's this thing with Christians today where we say certain things that aren't scripture. For example, in the Bible, it never considers or calls, that I know of at least, it never considers or calls Gabriel an archangel. The only one that's considered or called an archangel in the Bible is Michael, right? So a lot of people like they tell me, oh, there's four archangels, or there's this many archangels, and Satan was an archangel and then he fell, and they say all these things, but none of this, like those sayings that they're saying, like none of that comes from scripture itself. It actually comes from the Apocrypha, like the Book of Enoch and other things, and just different things that we give name to, or we say about, or like even with the demonic realm, or when you're, you know, I've seen people that do deliverance ministry and they talk about, they say certain things that sound biblical, but when you look for it in scripture, it's not there, right? But when you look for it, really, it's in the Apocrypha, which is the non-canonical books like the Book of Enoch. And not to say that they're wrong or they're right or whatnot, but what I am to say is I think we should do a better job of differentiating what is scripture to consider it fact versus what is not scripture to consider it theory, right? And yeah, so I just think we need to kind of define the differences and define what it is. But anyways, yeah. So to me, Enoch, one of the coolest characters in the Bible, just because he was so close with God that God just was like, "Come on, let's go, man. You come on." You know, like I think Bill Johnson, as I heard, said that he walked with God and they were out for a walk one day, and God was just like, "You know what, man, my place is closer. Just come with me." You know what I mean? I thought that was cool. But yeah. Anyways, I thought this was an interesting topic, an interesting video to make. You guys, again, check out these other videos that I got. Show some love. I might have some merch coming soon. I don't know, but anyway, just be blessed, guys. Love y'all. Peace out.